It's a busy day for injury news on the BWI Live Recruiting Show. I'm Thomas Frankar. We're going to get to Rocco Becht's timeline for returning to practice, some revealing things that I think are going to be interesting for the Penn State defense, and the latest thing that came out this morning from Penn State football. All of that, plus recruiting. Ryan Snyder's going to join us in a little bit because we're working on a bunch of different things. He's off doing his own thing for the first half of the show because we're going to be talking about what happened yesterday with Penn State football. So, Sean Fitz, let's just get right to it. The news this morning is dropping from Instagram, I want to say, with Andrew Rappleyea in the dreaded injury photo reveal. So what do we know about the situation here with Andrew Rappleyea and the latest with Penn State football as they are entering March, which means spring football is just around the corner?
Yeah, we're looking at, not an ideal situation for Penn State's tight end room for the spring. But as we reported, we put a story out a little bit ago. He's fine. It's some routine cleanup. We're not going to see him this spring. I think he'll be back in the summer. So I think you're looking at, some short-term panic here. But at the end of the day, we know he's a good football player. He'll be back. Yeah. And it's not the ACL. It's not the knee, that he did 2 years ago now. So that's a positive sign for Rappleyea. Of course, there's work to be done in that tight end room. Gabe Burkle's coming off of an injury that he had at Iowa State, yep. And Benjamin Bramer still getting settled in with different things. So a tight end room, it's going to be active this spring. The conversation that we had yesterday on the show about tight ends versus wide receivers, if we're going to guess what's going to happen in the spring, I'm going to go with wide receivers. Yeah. I'd like to redo my guess there, teacher. 4
healthy tight ends for the upcoming spring football season, which is interesting for an offense that really likes tight ends and really wants to put them out there on a regular basis. So it's going to be interesting with the top 3 of the top 4 pass catchers that we were talking about. Andrew Rappleyea, both of the receivers, Chase Soule and Brett Etzkelson, all at least partially unavailable so far this year. Rocco Becht was talking about that yesterday, how all 3 of those guys haven't been able to be a part of the winter workouts and some of the stuff they're doing on their own away from the coaches. So it's been a very interesting start for the Penn State football team, which is trying to bring all these guys together. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but the actual bringing them together on the field has been delayed because of all of these cleanups and all of these injuries coming off of last season for both teams.
Yeah, and the thing that I'll say here is I think people are looking at this and being like, oh, finally, injury news, a new revelation in Penn State football. And I don't think that's going to be the case, to be honest with you. Yeah. Matt Campbell, if you look back to what he did at Iowa, he will mention injuries, but he's not going to talk about them. I don't think he's going to be as, go out of his way as much as James Franklin did. But I think that it's going to be more of the same, right? Short-term, long-term, all that kind of stuff. Don't let that lingo. I hope you didn't put that out with the trash today, because it's going to stick around. So we're gonna notate Andrew Rappleyea as a short-term guy right now, but for the long term, it's not going to be more open. Everyone feels right now like everything is different, and we're getting a lot of the same things in different ways, and it feels that way. So I think that's what we're looking at with sort of how you're going to handle Penn State's injuries. A lot of these guys came in with notable dings from the last year. Rocco Becht, of course, had surgery in December on his non-throwing shoulder, and he's had some issues with his whole body, right? That he
plays a rough style of football for a guy his size,
but he's open to talk about it, right? I mean, this is not a state secret or anything like that. So I think that maybe a little bit more open with the players, but them putting themselves out on Instagram and stuff like that, I don't think it's going to be the norm.
Yeah. So we'll keep monitoring that, of course, as it comes up, and we got more to talk about on that side of things with our impressions from yesterday. But, of course, just a quick news and notes this week. Of course, Drew Aller is going to throw later this week, which was big news yesterday. But the NFL Combine on-field action starts today. Nittany, Dennis Sutton, and Zane Durant both take the field with the defensive line. So good luck to both of them, and hopefully they perform well. What are you expecting from these guys when it comes to the testing performance? And do you think either of these guys have the opportunity to be the guy for Penn State that blows up the combine, as we've seen from them in the last 10 years? They've put out guys that have performed very well at their positions and been standouts. I think it's a little hit or miss this year whether they can or not, but I'm just curious, you think, to me, like if they do, it's going to be one of these two guys But what do you think the likelihood of that is?
Yeah, I think Zane's got a shot there. He's a really athletic guy that is just one of those compact athletes. They usually do really well at the combine. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything on his draft prep, but he's just fits that narrative of a guy that can really run, a guy that's got some explosive tendencies. Again, really disappointed in the season that he had in 2025. I think you said that about a lot of people. But you look at the athletic profile that he's got, and he's a good player, but also a guy that projects as a combine guy. Nittany has always been the 5-star because of what he was a football player. He's the freak athlete. Now he is a freak. Like, don't get me wrong. You look at that guy and he is jacked and he can move and he can do all this sort of things, but he's not going to set any records or anything like that. I'm excited to see him work. I'm excited to see him interview. Obviously, those guys probably have the most to gain outside of Drew in terms of what to pick up in the next couple of days. And of course, we've neglected to mention Tyler Duzansky out there snapping. It's a heck of a. I tell you what, that is a heck of an honor because there's not going to be many guys that are going to get up there as specialists, and to be so as a long snapper is pretty freaking cool. So congratulations to Duzansky for living the dream, and hopefully that leads to a pro career that can replicate his predecessor in Chris Stoll, Super Bowl champion Chris Stoll.
Super Bowl champion Chris Stoll. I'm trying to look it up quickly to see if they've weighed in yet at the combine. I'm sure they have. I just haven't been able to find any of that stuff. I'm just curious because like the 40 time in relation to the size, I don't know what Nittany has made in terms of choices as far as how he weighed in. So here it is, 6'5", 268 is where he's weighed in at the combine. So at 268 pounds, if he runs a sub 4.7 or a sub 4.75, do you think that's like impressive for that size of an athlete? Because I think in a straight line, Nittany can be pretty explosive. He can, I think, chew up some yards and kind of get a good 40 time for his size. Is that realistic, do you think?
I think so. I mean, we always tend to overrate that kind of speed aspect of it. So what does he do? Like, number one, does it matter? Not really. How he runs in a straight line. But you're looking at sort of how he moves and how he comes out in his first 5-10 yard splits are going to be what sets him apart or tries to set him apart. So I don't think it matters all that much. 4.75 might be a tad low in my opinion. I'm trying to go back as you were talking, and unfortunately didn't talk long enough because I was trying to go back and see what numbers I had on him previously, because I know Zane has been in the 4.6s to the 4.8 region, and 4.75 would be a great time for any defensive tackle. But I think he's got the opportunity to run that as well. I have to look and see which one is older.
There was an older time that I got on Nittany that was like 4.72. So that's why I was trying to put it in that of like he's a couple years older. I know that was something maybe he was focusing on this past year. So in any event, like just trying to gauge it and kind of set a level for fans who want to watch the combine or want to see the highlights on social media later today. That's kind of what we're talking about. And I have a hot take. Last thing I got here. I believe I have found the correct answer for where Drew Aller fits best in the NFL, and it is not the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, let's try a little harder than PA quarterback goes to Pittsburgh with our analysis. I think the best position for Drew Aller and the best team fit in the reverse, the team that could use him the best, is the Los Angeles Rams.
Of course.
Think about it.
T. Frank, you built that up, and like the first thing that you said, I was like, Rams. It's got to be the Rams. It's got to be a Stafford.
It's got
the Rams.
Right, and but similar style of player.
Sorry to steal your thunder like that.
You got time to develop. No, I'm glad it was obvious enough that everyone else could see it, because that means it's right.
Yes,
you've got the
exactly how that works these days.
You've got time to develop him, and if there's a guy that I think could help Aller specifically in a class that doesn't have a ton of talent. This is not like a highly sought-after quarterback class. And the Rams have been very good at being efficient in the draft and finding quality throughout the draft, not just with the first pick. And I'm not saying like he goes to them at 29. I'm saying second, third round, they take him, they stash him and develop him from, a Hall of Fame quarterback who has a similar skill set and has had a similar journey with that pressure, but maybe doesn't achieve number one overall draft pick. I think it's a perfect fit for both sides, because they don't, the transition and the cost analysis of trying to find a quarterback, if you can steal one, that's awesome, like for any team. And I think they're the team that would have the sort of draft analysis. If they think he's a guy that they can work with, I think that'd be a perfect fit between the two.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, just anytime that you can go into a situation where there's no pressure right away and there's no like problem with developmental, like basically what you're saying here is you want to be drafted to a team in the bottom 10 picks of whatever that round is. So if you go to the third round, you know, you just want to wait. Now you get to that point in the draft and everybody's wheeling and dealing. So it can go anywhere, but you know, if you're Drew, you're a stash. I mean, that's kind of the reality of the situation. That's fine. Like he can be productive, be productive, improve, and you know, get paid while he's doing it as a stash. That's completely fine. By the way, I went back and because it's on my brain, I got 4.66 as the low mark for both Zane and Nittany. That was a couple years back. So
wow.
We'll see what happens. I think the last I saw with Nittany was 4.73. So and Zane in the 4.8 range when he added some weight. So it'd be interesting to see if they're jockeying to be a similar speed. So see which one of the Penn State defensive linemen is the fastest. You would not think that would be the conversation, but here, you know, it's always interesting seeing the combine and what we all make of it. As you pointed out, that a 40-yard dash for a defensive end doesn't matter, and yet if you run a 4.4 and you're a defensive end that's 255 pounds, you're a top 5 pick. Like that's just how that happens. So we'll see what happens with these guys. We don't expect that. I mean, I think the most important 40 is going to be Zakee Wheatley when you're talking about guys at the combine, because he's not fast. I mean, there's no getting around it. You put pads on him, and he's a really, really good football player who covers a ton of ground. But I think it's, you know, you're going to go out there and see him run a 4.7, and you're going to be like, ooh, that hurts. But at the same time, that's actually probably okay for him, knowing what he is and knowing what Penn State's previous staff will be the ones they go to for that information. But that would be in line with what he's ran at Penn State. So we're going to see what he does, because he's got a lot to gain as well. Like I said, great football player. It's just, are you going to get over those teams' mental humps of this guy's not as fast as everyone else, which we've seen some really good football players that are not as fast as everyone else that turn into really good pros. So hopefully that's,
and we've seen really bad football players who are faster than everybody else and get overdrafted because of what they could be. We'll be following along. Greg Pickle and I won't be able to help myself. Like, as much as all of these things are kind of ethereal, I will be writing about it and watching it today.
It's a holiday weekend for you. Just get out there and just look at those guys in shorts and t-shirts and be like, man, this is it. I love it.
Yeah, and I like the on-field drills. The nice thing is, like, watching the on-field drills and seeing everybody doing the same thing in comparison. I do think there's value in those things. So if you want to learn more about where these guys, and a guy that I think is going to have an opportunity to raise his awareness is Drew Shelton. I think he's going to do well. I don't know about the testing, but in general, if he's out there doing combine drills, he's going to look great. I'll break all that down at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com just for $1. Fitz is writing about other stuff that are probably a little more relevant to Penn State football fans directly, including all the things that we learned from the team yesterday at the Player Media Day. I'm having a hard time of thinking of different ways to call these things, because everything's a media day. We had a media day with the coaches earlier this month. We called that Winter Media Day, even though it was for the National Signing Day. Now we have this, hey, nice to meet you, getting to know all of the new football players, along with some of the returners this past week. So, do you want to start with Rocco Becht, or do you want to start with overall impressions? Because you talked to a bunch of... We were not at the same table at any point, so we have had different conversations. I'm interested to learn what you learned, and vice versa.
I stayed away from Rocco Becht because everyone saw Rocco Becht. He had a table there, and guys were just like, I know Greg was getting in line with his tripod and things like that, and it's great because he's the new face of the program, right? He's the new extension of Matt Campbell, if you will. So you're going to see a lot of Rocco Becht everywhere. But to me, it's about talking to these other guys, kind of learning their stories and figuring out what brought them to Penn State. Obviously, we know that Matt Campbell brought them to Penn State, and that was very evident in terms of talking to these guys. It was just basically, I was talking to Brett Elskitson, and you're talking to a guy who basically, he doesn't want to talk about the portal because, all the whatever tampering could be, alleged from anyone else. These guys were following Matt Campbell. He's like, I came to Penn State and it was pretty much a done deal. I just had to, see the place and make sure the key worked, basically. So like you're looking at things like that, but it's more than that. It's the relationships that have been built over the last 5 or 6 years with this staff going back. And I'm actually writing something on recruiting right now, way too many words, but it's really interesting in terms of what they've been able to do and how they've been able to turn those recruiting relationships into eventual commitments, eventual productive players for them. And, you kind of see why that, or how this staff shines. And I don't think we're there yet. I think there's plenty to work on. We've said that a bunch of times about how this recruiting effort is going to sort of play out. But I think there's more of a roadmap now, just based off of the data that I looked through and how all this was played out. But you saw that in the players. I mean, it was basically just like, trust me, bro. And they trusted him, and they got a lot of those guys. And now it's about the Remember the Titans moment, where you're bringing both schools together, and then you've got some third party West Virginia transfers, Syracuse transfers, all these guys that have come together, and it seems to be going pretty well. I mean, you're not really sure what the surface is and what it looks like on the surface and what it's going like in the building, but it seems like they've gotten along. It seems like they're on kind of level footing right now. And if you look at, a lot of the attention's been on the Iowa State guys, but if you look at the Penn State guys, I think a lot of those guys had opportunities to leave, and they're still here for a reason. I talked to Dom Ruley at length yesterday. He was awesome, by the way. Dom Ruley, if you ever get a chance to spend a few minutes with him, very introspective, very aware of what happened, very aware of where his place is, and very aware of where he wants his place to be. So I'll write that one up at some point. But you're looking at guys that stayed for a reason, and guys that knew if they stayed that there was going to be some sort of calamity, some sort of different meshing of personalities, different meshing of styles and things like that. But if you stay, that's what you sign up for. So I thought that was pretty cool to talk to some of those guys, not only the new transfers, but also the guys that were stepping back into the well at Penn State and getting their outlook on things.
We'll get to some more of those observations and thoughts, but one of the biggest big takeaway items was Rocco Becht talked about his injuries last year and his timeline for return, which I think maybe more optimistic than some of us thought, or at least the initial observation. So here he is talking about last year and what he has for this.
Yeah, it was really hard. It was probably the lowest place that I've been in my collegiate career, mentally and physically. There's a 4-game stretch when we lost those 4 games that was pretty tough on me. And I had to look at my family and some friends and talk to them and to kind of get myself out of it. Dealing with a torn labrum in my left shoulder and an AC joint sprain in my right. It's not the easiest thing to do, and so the only reason why I played this season out is because I want to do it for my team. I felt like it was my responsibility to give them everything that I had, and I think it was the right decision to ultimately get my surgery right after the season instead of waiting to see if we played in a bowl game or not, because I'd be able to be back sooner and wherever I was going to go to kind of get the lay of the land and get back out there on the field for my new team, for my new teammates. And the process has been going really well. Shoulder's feeling great, right shoulder's fully healthy, and left shoulder's almost there. So I'm expecting to be over half of spring ball, to be in playtime for over half of spring.
So Bizzle says, can't wait for Timothy Chalamet to beef up for Rocco's biopic. He looks like somebody, and I can't place it perfectly, but he definitely has a celebrity doppelganger that is just like in the back of my head. I want to say it's from the 90s or the early 2000s. Timothy Chalamet's a decent pull. I think we can do better, though.
He can play anybody, though.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a fair point. So coming back for spring football, at least part of it, according to Becht, is a pretty big deal for a team that needs a quarterback out there. Pretty much the unquestioned starter here for Penn State football. And he mentioned later that he will begin throwing on Saturday. His first preliminary throwing session is going to be on Saturday. So what do you make of that news, and how important is that for Penn State?
Yeah, good news. Not an unexpected news. Jake Waters said that a couple of weeks ago that, you kind of work him in, but you never know how it's going to take. I mean, you see this with pitchers in baseball. They go out and they throw a bullpen session after coming off an injury, and all of a sudden they're shut down for a little bit longer. I don't expect that to happen. Obviously, the fact that it's non-throwing shoulder makes a big difference here. But yeah, it's one of those things where you want him out there as soon as possible. You don't need him doing everything. You can have him hand off. You can have him, just kind of drop back and, oh, here's where I would throw it, type things, because he is your extent. Like I said, the extension of Matt Campbell is very important here. You could tell from talking to number one, talking to all the Iowa State players. There's a ton of respect there for Rocco Becht and the way that he leads. And then basically from the media, because they've been, asking about leaders and basically leading the question with Rocco Becht. And that there's a reason for that. Like there's high expectations in terms of him coming in and sort of, being their Trace McSorley, being their guy that, being their Sean Clifford, the guy that can do this in this spot, even though he's not a lifer here, even though he's not going to be, a much more than I don't want to say it like this, but he's going to be a 1-year guy for Penn State. And
right.
It's about what he can make of that 1 year and how he can sort of establish Matt Campbell's culture to everyone else. And that was
it's an important year.
Right.
Maybe it's 1 year,
massive.
but it is a very important year because it's the first year. And I asked him about that of, being the guy that was chosen to start things off here and be tied at the hip with your head coach at what I'm assuming Matt Campbell wants to be a very long stay at Penn State. And so like there's a lot of weight to that, even if it is in that 1 year of microwaving all of those things. One of the things that I cut you off there. Was there something else you wanted to say about Rocco Becht?
No, just that, when we had that discussion about Beck versus Grunkmeyer, it's not just quarterback versus quarterback on field. It's a lot that goes into it. And we both have a ton of respect for Ethan Grunkmeyer and think he's going to be a good player, and think he already is a good player. But there's that aspect that comes into it, because if this is the guy that can, grab the proverbial bull by the horns and go with it, then that is a big deal. That is a big, a big leap in leadership there at the quarterback position.
So the other injury conversation that I had that I thought was very interesting, Keanu Williams was also great. I'm going to be writing about him a little bit later at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com this week. He talked about his injury journey. This is his 6th medical year. Tore his Achilles in 2024. So whenever I hear that, and then you see him last year and you go, well, it was fine, and you're looking at the film and you say, this guy's okay, just like Achilles injuries, especially for big athletes, take 2 years to recover from, typically, from where you can play, but like the year after that is when you become the player you were previously, if you can get back there in terms of your ability to be explosive, your ability to play the position correctly and feel free. And he talked about how at the end of last year, he started to feel like himself again. So an offseason, I think when we're talking about this defense and starting in the middle with Williams and Siali Tapaki, Williams being healthy and playing like he did before his injury, like there is an opportunity for him to be a dominant defensive lineman as a run stuffer. I think that's going to be his job. And he was pretty open and honest about the idea that like he enjoys being the older player in the room and being able to teach because he's been in this system before and he's been with Akaika Malloy before, even though it's not naturally his style to be a leader by be a vocal leader, and there's always that lead by example versus being a vocal leader, and like a lot of guys have to step up in these awkward situations of transition between different schools, different players, everything, the dynamic we've been talking about for 3 months now. The other final thing I have is that from a defensive scheme perspective, I don't think anybody knows what it is yet. I think Danton Lynn knows.
The important thing is that they all fit well into the scheme. Then you follow up and you say, what is that scheme? Yeah, we really haven't talked about it all that much yet. So I think Danton Lynn knows his scheme, but I don't know that they've committed the time to everything that they need to know about this defense yet. You and I had the same reaction yesterday. It was like, because you walked up to me and you're like, hey, did these guys like kind of talk about the scheme? And I was like, no, they talked about how they fit in the scheme, but also they didn't talk about the scheme and what positions and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, is that on purpose? I'm like, I'm not sure they're there yet. So we're working on, they haven't gone to camp at Gettysburg yet. If we're going to do the Remember the Titans comparisons all over the place.
Yeah, we got the comparisons going in the chat. Everyone's got I think we got a good cast going on in the chat. So those are my observations. Any final thoughts before we transition in the next topic? I want to make sure we leave enough time for the recruiting stuff. But it was a good update, good chance to get to know these people. Anything else stand out to you about what you saw or learned yesterday?
I think there's a lot of learning going on. You're talking to different guys that are coming from all different parts of the country or parts from other countries, and you kind of see, and again, this is probably something that'll be overreacted to in terms of the change from the previous regime, the change from the previous rosters. You see a lot of the respectful nature of these guys. You see a lot of reading of the name, these first two media days, we've had name tags on, and
it's been great.
You see the coaches and the players make an effort to read the name tag, make an effort to connect it. Like, oh, I talked to you on Twitter, after I committed, or, you reached out or whatever. And I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's indicative of what they're trying to do in terms of raising young men and being that. And again, the end result is going to be, you have to win football games, but I think that's a good step, and that's a good insight into what they're looking for in the players that they recruit, in the guys that they don't recruit. And I think that's worth noting, because it's not, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, wins matter, but in the in the everything else, it's nice to see the respect, and it's nice to see the desire to forge that relationship for some of those guys, especially some of the older guys.
Yeah, it helps that your name is Sean Fitz, so they're like, oh yeah, and then I introduce myself as T Frank, and there's like 18 words on my name tag, and they're like, okay, sure, whatever that
great.
Is.
Sure thing, Steve.
Nice to meet you. So I want to talk to you now about one of my favorite things, which is, I love football, and it's the thing that I do. It's the hobby, it's the job, it's everything. But I do have other hobbies and passions. One of those for me is woodworking. It's just something that happened over the years, and I am very excited about one of our newest sponsors here on the show, which is Liberty Lumber, and I'm going to let Justin introduce himself and some of the things they build for you, which is specifically for Penn State fans.
How's it going, Nittany Lion fans? My name is Justin. I'm born and raised in Pennsylvania, and this is my wood shop. We are Liberty Lumber Products. Come here, I want to show you a few things. So my company is now officially licensed with Penn State. So I want to show you the products that are now available at our online store. We now have some coasters that are available. These are handmade by our team here at Liberty Lumber Products. We have some very talented carpenters here. And we also have this cooler that's now available. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Please follow us on our socials and check out what we have coming next. We got some big things.
So they've got, speaking of cool things, he was sending me some of the product demos that they're doing that aren't up on their site yet, and they're very cool. So one of them that is up there right now, by the way, is a bar top table. So if you are interested in your Penn State fan cave and upgrading it for this spring, maybe you want it something small for your RV, you want that cooler, you can go to Liberty Lumber Products and use promo code PSUFans to get 10% off your first purchase. I actually forgot to do that because I was doing all that Rappleyea stuff at the start of the show. I will get the link and the promo code in the description, either during the video or after the video, but you should definitely check this stuff out because it is really high quality stuff. And I watch a lot of woodworking YouTube, so I know like what is and isn't high quality stuff. And they do a great job. So check them out once again, libertylumberproducts.com. Welcome to the show now. We have Ryan Snyder here because this is the recruiting show. And we need to get into some recruiting. So,
hey T. Frank, can I say one more thing about the Liberty Lumber stuff?
Sure.
I went and looked, and he does Penn State stuff, but like this is not I want contracts for everyone. This is a passion for him. Obviously, you got Providence, Tennessee, Penn State, Rhode Island, and Tennessee Chattanooga. So the connection is there. Like it's not just here are some Penn State coasters because I also do Notre Dame coasters and USC coasters and all these there's a connection there. And I think it's pretty cool. And we're really psyched to have him on board because all this stuff looks awesome. And also I forgot that when you said you forgot to do something, I thought that you may have forgot to enter the promo code, which that'd be a bad thing. I know Ryan knows all about that from our times with the Game Time reads.
Yeah, those are fun times. By the way, T. Frank, you look like Paul Bunyan. You would be a, woodwork kind of guy. Makes sense.
I cosplay as a tradesperson on the weekends. The beard and the flannel. It's all.
What you do on the weekend is your business, buddy. You just keep it off.
except for in the fall. Then it's everybody's business. But yeah.
Then it's everybody. Yeah. Then everyone is seeing everything I'm doing at all times because I'm just like sitting here on a live channel.
We're gonna put you on like a Truman Show version for this fall. Just from Saturday morning to Monday when you're just watching film. We're just gonna have cameras on you the entire time.
That would be the most boring. It's dynamic in my head. Like, it is exciting watching and learning all those things. But watching somebody, like, that'd be like watching somebody read, like, super exciting stuff. Which, there are streams that do that. There are people that are like, yeah, I really like watching somebody else watch paint dry. And I don't know, not for me, but like, maybe we'll try it. Who knows?
You'd never watch paint dry. You'd watch him do woodworking, but not watch paint dry.
Yeah, sanding. 6 hours of sanding.
It is satisfying.
Ryan, spring practice visits are shaping up, and you've been working hard to get us all the information about guys that are interested in the program, some names that are familiar, some names that are new. So what do you got this week? I always love learning from Ryan at this point in the show because I haven't been able to keep up with everything he's been writing, and I read the cursory stuff, but I also don't read everything, so I don't ask him a dumb question here on the channel. So Ryan, what's going on with recruiting and the guys that are interested in coming to Penn State in about a month, actually?
Yeah. First off, my wife's on a call, so hopefully my internet's working. I'm a little worried about it because after last week, but hopefully it sticks with us. Two big additions this week, I think, as far as spring goes. I would talk about Zachary Gleason, right? Central Catholic cornerback. We've talked about him, I think, a lot over the last couple of months, and looks to be one of Terry Smith's most important targets. He's actually set up 5 visits so far. About to take 2 to Pitt and West Virginia, starting next week, so March 6th, March 7th. Penn State will be March 24th. That will be the first day of spring ball, so he's going to get to be there for that first practice under Matt Campbell, and then he's going to go to Vatech and Michigan State end of March, early April. So, I think we've talked about Gleason a lot as somebody that makes a lot of sense to be part of this class, whether that's this spring, or he does drag it out to official visits. Right now, he has Vatech and Penn State set for officials, but this is a recruitment that I think Terry Smith should be able to win, and so it's a positive sign that he's getting back. And look, the back half of his spring schedule is still wide open as well, so wouldn't be shocked at all if he was back for the blue-white game. Gleason's been to Penn State a ton over the last couple of years.
Is he the odds-on favorite? Is he the odds-on favorite to be the first player in the class? The reintroduction of 2027?
What do we say about with odds and percentages, Sean? Usually doesn't do us too well. I think he certainly makes sense to be somebody that could make a move in the springtime, because of the relationship with Terry. But I feel like whoever's the first 2027 commit's probably going to be somebody with Iowa State ties, right? That's kind of what I just
right.
It's going to be somebody that's we're getting to know, but maybe don't have as close or as much knowledge as somebody like Zachary Gleason. So we'll see how it plays out. But one other guy I wanted to mention too is Keeson Taylor, and he's Sean. You and I have talked about Keeson a good bit. This is a guy that Christian Smith had very good ties with, dating back to his time at Northwestern. And he just confirmed this week that he'll be on campus. I believe it's April 18th. So it's his only spring visit that he has set right now, which I think is interesting. And when you kind of look at where all he's visited, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan State, they've both hosted him twice each, but a lot of spread out visits. Like, he seems pretty open just from talking to him and trying to get a feel for kind of where his recruitment is at the moment. So it wouldn't shock me if he has a really good visit here in mid-April that Penn State could get an official visit. And by the way, 6'4", 225. I always forget to do that right off the bat. Defensive end out of Illinois. So defensive end certainly is defensive end is actually one of the positions that actually have more young talent than not. But Christian Smith's going to want to get his guys in here, and Keeson Taylor's been pretty high on his board and a good relationship. For probably well over about a year or so now, dating back to Northwestern.
Is it a good defensive end board? Because I see a lot of names that seem to be interested in Penn State, and they seem to be a lot of quite talented players when you look at their heights and their weights and their frames and things like that. So I guess how is this looking to you at this point in the spring?
Well, of course, you have Sese, right? He's going to be really important, and same with Mekhi Brown. Those are the two kind of Northeast, Mid-Atlantic guys. Obviously, James Pace and Anthony Sweeney. I did talk to Anthony Sweeney the other day. He did not include Penn State among his top schools right off the bat, but he is talking to them about a visit. So we'll keep an eye on him. Maybe with Pace, pace has been kind of quiet lately, so we'll see. But there's a lot of Midwest guys I still have to kind of figure out. I think it's Goldsby's his last name out of Kansas City. Is it Prince or I apologize, forget his first name. There's just, again, it's a whole new board, T. Frank. You know, I'm trying to learn so many guys that, you know, we weren't really following at all, you know, throughout the fall. And that's kind of what we have to sort out as far as who are those Christian Smith, Matt Campbell guys that are higher on the board than what it may look like at the moment. We know the regional guys. It's kind of figuring out the other ones and where they stack up. That'll be able to help us paint that picture.
They also just offered, a guy, Shabazz, in New Jersey that was in our initial Rivals 300 rankings, a guy that's a climber here in February of 2026. So Adekunle Adeteyo is what I'm going with right now. Probably wrong, but he's a guy that's seen his profile elevate in the last couple of days and weeks. 6'3", 230. Obviously, they've got some North Jersey connections with Savon Huggins. So there's guys in there that and Naz Oliver is the big one right there. So continues to expand that edge board. I think you just take as many edges as you can get. To be honest with you, I mean, there's no secret here in terms of what's valuable in today's game, and you can find these guys that are highly regarded. You can find these guys that are gems, and it's or hidden gems, and that's I don't think there's any rhyme or reason in terms of what will make a successful one, because there's so much growth and there's so much growth potential for these high school guys that makes sense. You can bring in a guy that's 195 pounds and be very successful. You can bring in a guy, you said, what would you say, T. Frank? Denai weighed in at 268 or something like that at the combine. Yeah. I think he was 262 when he was a sophomore in high school. So you're all over the map in terms of defensive ends. We talked a little bit yesterday to some of the defensive ends that are coming in, and I don't think there's a strict size regimen for these guys. You want length, obviously. You want pop. You want to be able to bend off the edge, but at the same time, I don't think there's a cut and dry. This is what a Penn State defensive end looks like moving forward.
Yeah, Penn State still has interest in Ryan Jackson too, by the way. Defensive end out of Annapolis. Hasn't gotten on campus yet, but I was talking to him the other day. Somebody to keep an eye on for a spring visit. Obviously, Vatek's pushing really hard there. I mean, remember, Sean, we thought he was close to maybe committing to Penn State.
He could have popped, yeah. I mean, things keep going well, and obviously we're having completely different conversations right now, but that's probably a guy that's in the fold in November, something like that. Yeah.
He visited twice. I think it was he came for, what was the game before the whiteout? Was it Villanova or something like that? Either way, came back-to-back weeks, looked like it was close, and then, everything fell apart. So,
who are the other guys that are coming this spring that you think are interesting? There's some national names and one name that I'm curious about just because I have seen him now for 3 years coming back to Penn State, who we thought at one point might have gotten away. So who are some of the other names that you're interested in talking about here? I guess I'll just ask,
who are you referring to?
What's the deal? What's the deal with Colt Lumpras?
Well, so Colt Lumpras isn't a spring visit. That's an official visit.
My bad.
Yeah, I just talked to Colt yesterday. I'll have a story up on him hopefully in the next hour or so when we get done. He has a lacrosse schedule. Him and Sean Curry are on the same team. The Lawrenceville school is, I believe, like the number one school in the country for lacrosse. They're very high up there. I think they've won a national championship or two in recent years. And both him and Sean Curry play lacrosse for there. It's a big time program. It's like a college program, honestly. So missing time for going college football visits isn't as easy as you'd think, probably. So right now, Lumpers has to figure out some things. I think that's also why Sean Curry's coming next weekend, kind of before lacrosse gets going. So keep an eye on that and remember that down the road. But I think Penn State is very much in the mix with Colt Lumpras now. The two things that really kind of stand out to me. One, he's only visited Alabama one time. He went there in March last year, committed in December. And that's it. He didn't go to a game or anything. So it was feels like maybe a bit of a sudden commitment. And then on top of that, the coach that he committed to, I believe is Brian Ellis. He was the tight end coach for Alabama, and now he's the quarterback coach. So there's kind of he's still on the staff, of course, but kind of a new dynamic there that will make things interesting. And that's how Texas A&M has now gotten in the mix with Lumpers as well. A&M, Penn State, and Bama all have official visits set with him. Let's see where things go. So I'm not sure if he's going to get here in the spring or not, but Lumpers has always been a guy that, I thought could realistically end up at Penn State. I mean, I'm going to have the story up a little later. You guys can read the quotes for yourself, but I mean, he flat out admits it. Like he was right there to another guy that was kind of seriously considering it in August, early September, and then when everything changed, that all fell apart. But certainly a guy to keep an eye on. The thing with Lumpers that's interesting to me is he a tight end? And I know wide receiver kind of doesn't. He runs a 4.7, has a 4.6 shuttle. He doesn't have those explosive wide receiver numbers, but he's not much of a blocker either, right? So he's just kind of a mismatch guy, and I think that's kind of how Penn State is recruiting him at the moment, as far as, hey, we want to get you split out a little bit more than as far as being an inline guy and blocking and things like that.
There's room for that in this offense too. So Ben Bramer does a lot of that stuff as well, and I don't know that he's necessarily a dynamic blocker either at 6'7". So there is that kind of blueprint of maybe not the most explosive freakazoid tight end, maybe not a superstar blocker, but if you can play in space and you got a natural feel for being a receiver, if you have 3 tight ends on the field, somebody's got to be playing out in space, unless you're just going to pack everybody into the line of scrimmage. So I do think that he's a fit for this offense as well.
Right. So yeah, but that's kind of where he's at right now. I think Florida and a few others, UCLA is one he mentioned. Colorado just offered the other day, could be a visit that he takes. There will probably be 5 official visits or so if it goes that long. Now, again, also Alabama has the first official visit right now, at least for that last weekend in May, and maybe they'll get him to shut it down. Who knows? But I think Taylor Mauser is doing a good job recruiting him at the moment, and he's always had that attraction to Penn State as a school, and that's still very much still there.
Who else are you working on and learning more about who's coming to Penn State this next?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking OVs, there's a lot of guys that we can kind of go through. I think Keyshawn Telfair. Telfair has both. Let me clarify. Telfair was one of the guys that we wrote about this week as far as a spring visit, and that's going to be April 10. Very interesting recruitment there. This guy, to me, epitomizes Terry Smith's ability to spot talent. I remember when he offered Keyshawn in October 2024, I just kind of ignored it. I was like, I don't even know who this guy is. He had very little offers at the time. It was so quiet, and it stayed like that for a really long period of time. And then, of course, he blew up this past year. I think he had 4 or 5 interceptions in his first handful of games. Really good season, excellent ball skills. Really just has to get bigger. I mean, he's 160 right now, 6 foot. It has to put on some size if he's going to play at the P4 level. But the fact that he has OV set with Clemson, Penn State, Miami, I think that speaks highly to the kind of talent that he is. And like I said, he's coming to Penn State on April 10. His OV for Penn State, I believe, is June 12th to the 14th. Miami's also Notre Dame's also in the mix. I think they have a March 29 visit. He's going to go visit Colorado as well. But this feels like a recruitment that Penn State has a real chance with. I'm curious to see if Ohio State comes pushing. He's now top 5 player in Ohio. Kind of surprised. Haven't heard more there, but of course, as we all know, Ohio State recruits truly nationally, and I gotta dig a little bit and maybe hit up Berm or any of those guys and see where their cornerback board is at to kind of learn more on Telfair. But Terry's in a good spot there for sure, and now they're getting 2 visits out of it in the next couple of months. That's a positive sign.
Can you tell me a little more about Samaje Robinson? Did we talk about him yet?
Yeah. Oh, this guy. I mean, as far as great size goes, so Samaje is certainly what you consider a late riser, I guess. Really didn't have any big-time offers before the season. And really, even after his season, he transferred to Dillard. I think he was at Palm Beach Central during the season. Went to Dillard, which is gets way more coaches coming through there through January. And I think maybe probably picked up 3/4 of his offers in just the last couple of months. So he's raved about Penn State so far, right? And Terry Smith actually called Penn State his favorite going into the spring. At the same time, he is very, very new to the recruiting process. So I want to just kind of keep that in mind here. This is all very new to him, but at 6'3", 180, excellent ball skills. His ability to track the ball, I think, is what stands out the most, at least talking to Charles and, kind of what I see myself as well. And at that size, that's all impressive. He also did, the Rivals camp last year, I think he had a 4.5 40 and a 4.2 shuttle. Great times there, for what was a rising junior at the time. So again, guy very new to the process, Mississippi State, and he has one other, I think it's Virginia, official visit set. Nothing for the spring at the moment. We'll see if he's able to make the trip north or not. But, Terry Smith's doing a good job recruiting him there. Again, I think he makes a lot of sense to be one of those guys that absolutely blows up during the spring evaluation period. Depending on how things go, but wouldn't be shocked at all if some Florida schools, are snooping around, get him on campus here in the spring, and then they go down and watch him work out, or watch a spring practice in Florida, and all of a sudden he's at 30 plus offers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good recruiting profile there. 6'3", 180 with a 4.5 and a 4.2 shuttle. That's I don't see too many holes in that game, especially if you're saying I haven't had a chance to see his highlights, but like if he's got ball skills like you say, like yeah, that's the kind of profile that everyone wants at corner is all of it, please.
They have Dylan McGee too. I don't know if you want to mention him real quick. This one's funny to me, Sean. There's got to be something wrong with this list because you're not going to TCU on June 11th and then coming to Penn State on June 12th.
I noticed that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I sent that out to a source yesterday. I was like, hey, do you know the details here? And Penn State has the June 12-14 weekend set for him. So right. I don't know if the TCU thing was a miscommunication, if it's more of he's leaving on the 11th. Maybe it's a June 9 to 11 midweek. We'll sort that out with time. But McGee did come up for the whiteout game, 6'1", 165 out of Red Oak, to Texas. Was that the same school as Taz Williams, I believe? Taz was from Pittsburgh, I want to say. He ended up at Baylor. But we'll see where this goes. He's got a Texas OV set. Yeah, everything's Texas except for Penn State, right? SMU, TCU, Texas. Kind of feels like that would be more so the more realistic direction it goes. But time will tell. So I think they got to get him here in the spring if they really want to stick in that recruitment. And that it reminds me of one of those OVs that could maybe not happen. We'll see.
Gotcha. Any other final thoughts? I want to make sure we get to the Rivals 300 update, which happened this week. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, but I want to make sure we dig into it with both you and Fitz here on the show. You guys have great insight into those things. So we
only have another month until spring visits start, bud. So I think we're good. Yeah, we've got plenty to discuss over the next 20-some days.
All right, so let's get into that with the on 300, or excuse me, the Rivals. That's twice this week. I got to put some sort of like penalty box in here. Rivals 300 update with the class of 2027. Fitz, you have characterized any update at this point as still too early to be like majorly taking notes of how these things are moving around. At the same time, just curious where we left off yesterday. You were talking about some of the guys that had moved up and moved down. So if you could just, again, how all this works with the fact that it snowed 2 inches, 3 inches this last weekend, and it's nice and sunny in the South, like how are all of these, it feels like it's an asymmetrical ranking given the information that we have based on the time of year guys are working out. Is that the right read?
That's typical. You're looking at different areas of the country. I don't want to say getting their boosts in different times, but you look at when Under Armour and when Nike's coming back, and they're not coming to State College, but they're coming back to North Jersey in April. Under Armour's coming in May, or actually they both might be April now. So
Under Armour's going to be the same freaking weekend as last year, the first official visit weekend, which is terrible.
Oh man,
I continue to not get that to get that. I don't either. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But anyway, actually, Penn State's not having a big visit weekend that weekend. From what I understand, it's supposed to be the 3 weekends in June, but not the May 30th weekend. Neither here nor there. And that we'll get there eventually. But I think you just see that. Like I said, I like some of the moves because it's based on the film, the film stuff. We say film doesn't lie. We lie about that. But you're looking at how these guys performed as juniors, and that's usually a pretty good indicator of how these things turn out. Like I said, sometimes there's too much information at hand, and we overthink some guys. And other times you look at the tape and you're like, okay, well, this guy isn't what he thought. It was really interesting to me to look at, look at the numbers of the guys that dropped out. And I think 12 running backs dropped out of the original Rivals 300. I think that's what it was. And that's, number one, a lot. And number two, shows you what these early offers, shows you what these early rankings and stuff like that they are very imperfect. And we've seen Penn State specifically in the past, and everybody really, but offer running backs based on a productive freshman year, based on a productive sophomore year, something like that. And then these guys don't take that next step. We were talking about Tamir Brown from New Jersey last week, and it's like, yeah, he looks really good. Now, Tamir has legit speed. Like, his superpower is his speed, and that's probably not going to change. He's going to get bigger. He's probably going to take a couple of hundreds off of that, but it's not exactly, a guy that's tearing up defenses as a freshman and sophomore, but eventually he's going to run a 4.75, 4.8, something like that. So you're looking at the development here in the big picture and seeing different approaches, different rankings approaches. And again, as the people that give the stars, we don't give the stars, but we promote the stars. Like, it's still very, very early in the process. You're going to see a lot of these guys that pop up in April. I mean, you think back to Ethan Grunkmeyer, did not pick up an offer, did not pick up a major offer until the spring evaluation period when people got out and saw them. So it's not about jumping onto these guys. Like, Penn State's targets in December of 2025, February of 2026 aren't necessarily going to align with what they're looking for in June, when kind of the rubber hits the road with these official visits. So we're going to continue to see development. We're going to continue to see a bunch of movement. Like I said, some of the movement I get behind. The others, there's still a lot of data that needs to be filled in.
With some of the movement, the other half of this being the perception of the player and the profile of the player, how do you think this staff is handling the spotlight on the players that they're recruiting, as opposed to maybe where they could get away with recruiting some guys under the radar? Have we seen any of that sort of like Penn State bump in attention be part of this conversation, and guys that were at one point lower getting kind of that increased attention, and then more eyeballs on them, suddenly they get a higher evaluation and suddenly their price tag goes up? How have you seen kind of that in the early stages here with this latest update?
Some of it. Last year, we saw Luke Wafel go from an 88 3-star to I think number 18 player nationally, and I think Carter Meadows went to the number 2 or 4 player nationally, something of that along those lines. I don't see as much of that this year, but again, it goes back to regions. It goes back to different spots where Penn State has been successful, or they've done a lot more in-depth evaluations. You've got some guys in certain positions. So take, for example, running back. We wrote about this after Keanu Spell committed to Georgia. Which guys are Penn State looking at? Which guys are on this potential roster for official visits and things like that? We listed 6 of them. I think 4 of them jumped into the Rivals 300 this update. So, like, the guys that we were talking about before, Abdul Toure from New Jersey was, I think, 74th nationally. Now he's a 3-star. Okay, well, these other guys that Penn State's actually recruiting are seeing their profile rise. And I didn't talk to Charles or Cody or anybody like that about running backs. It's just, one of those things where they usually have an edge on us. Not going to lie. Like, I think we do good work, but we don't have all the information, and we don't have the eye that college coaches have. That they're college coaches for a reason. So, so you see some of the development, like at running back, where these guys are, on the rise, even though seemingly, they've got great options. They've got opportunities to go play at places like Penn State, places like Clemson. And that's kind of what I'm looking at certain positions where, Penn State's ahead of the curve here. A lot of other schools are as well. We're not quite at the Penn State offers, so Georgia offers the next week situation.
Right.
Like that is what everyone thinks about, right? You think about a couple cycles ago, Fran Brown was at Georgia, and then, you saw a ton of that. And that's not really what we're at play here. Now, on the flip side, I think they are, I don't want to say stuck in their ways, but they're firmly committed to their evaluations. Like, they don't give a they do not care what our rankings say, and that's fine. Like, that is their prerogative. You probably print that sheet out, look over it, and be like, okay, so who do we miss? We talked about the offer they put out in Jersey this week to an edge rusher that just jumped into the Rivals 300. Okay, maybe that's checking your work and seeing, we missed this guy. It helps to have all the information possible, but they're not facilitating their board based on what we do with star rankings. And I think that's endearing, and hopefully it works.
Yeah. Ryan, what was your thoughts of the latest update? I haven't had a chance to talk to you about it.
I did get to talk to Charles a little bit, and I think the big thing about this update is that there were a lot of players who had a lot of good offers and different things like that. And it makes sense that these schools would kind of hop on before, our staff's able to get the full evaluations in. Good offers, quality, you see in that boost. And now after a full evaluation, you've seen the production, and now the sample size is there for these bumps to happen. There are 2 guys that stand out right away when I mean by that is Trey Segar, running back out of South Carolina. This is a guy who missed his entire sophomore year. Always had this really good build, though, right? Compact build, can run you over and make you miss. There was a lot there that you liked as a freshman, but when you miss your whole sophomore year, well, it makes it harder for someone like Charles to bump you in the rankings. But a lot of these schools are saying, yeah, we see this here. There's no reason not to throw out a verbal offer, right? Keep the recruitment going, get yourself on board. And that's, of course, what's he end up doing? He runs for almost 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns. Like, he has a great year. I think Brayton Feaster, linebacker out of Ohio, is another good example of this. Brayton's got 40 offers now, right? Was outside the rankings, I believe, previously. Well, why was that? He didn't have any linebacker film. I mean, he was just playing running back the last 2 years for the most part. He goes to Archbishop Moeller. It's a great school. They've got a lot of great linebackers up there. And so, of course, as a junior, he plays a lot more linebacker. You really see it on film. And thus now, it makes it a lot easier for someone like Charles to say, okay, he's not an 88 or an 89 3-star. This is a 4-star player. He's now number 159 in the country, which, by the way, linebacker as of now is pretty stacked, which I find interesting because that's a position I think Penn State really could use a big influx of young talent. Last year, there were 8 top 150 linebackers in the final Rivals 300. Or excuse me, it was 8. Yeah, 8. As of right now, there's 14. Top 150 linebackers. So obviously that'll change. That'll spread out a little bit. There's a long way to go, as Sean made clear. But one thing that is pretty clear is guys like Feaster, guys like Case Alexander. I think Brandon Lockley's right around that top 15 or so linebackers. Blake Betton, I think, is Blake Betton's a 4-star, but outside the
correct
Rivals 300, I believe. So there's some quality guys that they're in the mix with there who stack up pretty well at the moment. So we'll see where things go. But again, big point of this ranking is finally being able to put it all together as far as production. And yeah, that's why you're seeing such drastic moves like that.
I wanted to have a conversation about the quarterbacks and the update in the rankings there, but I actually think it'd be better to have the conversation about quarterbacks in the BWI Mailbag. So Penn State finally joined the ranks of college teams that have included quarterback on their roster of transfers for the first time ever under the Nittany Lions. Penn State 2012 says, is it even worth being interested in high school quarterback recruiting anymore? Without a multi-year contract or a buyout, quarterbacks are just going to be free agents and grab the biggest bag possible each offseason. So you can spend a lot of time and money developing a quarterback, and suddenly he might not be your guy of the future. So what do you guys think about this? Ryan, when it comes to quarterback recruiting and finding the right fit and all those things, is it worth going after one of the top quarterbacks, or is it better to find a guy that you feel like is going to stay with you? How do you view quarterback recruiting? Is it worth it, as Penn State 2012 wants to know?
It's riskier than I think most people give it credit for. It's really easy to point to Miami, right? The last 2 years, they've had a lot of success, right? It's easy to point to Indiana with Fernando Mendoza, Oklahoma with Mateer. I would even put Duke with Derry Mensah in there, but Duke is a great example, right? A team that had success and then got him stolen away from it, right? It's kind of risky, and now that's really going to probably burn Manny Diaz this year. But I think, we talk about those guys all the time, but didn't work out for Nico Iamaleava and UCLA, didn't really work out for Tennessee, and now Aguilar's a little bit of a different situation because of Nico moving on later and forcing them.
You could also say it didn't work out for Tennessee with Nico. I mean, he played there.
Yeah, then, he wasn't transferred, but
moving on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but Jackson Arnold, Auburn, it depends on if you want to play on that very top tier with stupid money. Yeah, the hits have been decent, but I think if you're not in that top 4 or 5 kind of QBs and you're playing underneath that, which is where Penn State's probably going to be more often than not, let's be honest, let's call it what it is financially, then I think it's very risky. And so that's why I still think high school recruiting is very important. Now, of course, paying dumb money to a freshman is risky as well. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation in my eyes.
It's all about getting the evaluation right, no matter if it's high school or if it's college. And if you get the evaluation right in high school, which is crapshoot. Not going to lie. I mean, you've seen a bunch of guys that have come through that are really good prospects that don't pan out. And if you do that, the thought is that you can save money over the course of 4 years. You can save money over the course of 5 years. And at the tier that Penn State is at, I don't see this as a place that is getting poached for quarterbacks, if that makes sense. I know Gronk just left. That's a completely different story. Sure. But it depends on where you're at in the system, and you try to be homegrown as much as you possibly can, and then you go with it. If you Rocco Becht's going to be a 4-year starter for Matt Campbell. I know it's 2 different schools, but it's one of those things where you can develop into the centerpiece of your roster. You can set a culture and you can try and get that going. What that's worth anymore, it depends on the program, really. But you have to be open to everything right now. Now, where it comes down to being crazy is how much are you willing to invest in that high school quarterback? Because probably not going to start right off the bat, especially in the portal era where you're bringing in experienced guys to get you wins from their experience, right? Mm-hmm. Bryce Underwood, you're paying a lot for him. Does that turn into a great investment, or does that become a historical bust? You still don't know. The jury's going to be out on that one as well. What was Faison Brandon at Tennessee? They paid him a lot. He was the number 1 or 2 quarterback nationally. I know that there were conversations at Tennessee about, is this worth the squeeze? Because you don't think that he's going to play right away. And I don't know if he's going to play right away or not, but you don't think that he's going to play right away. It's like the conversation we've had with Emmanuel Iheanacho and those offensive linemen that you're going to have to stash for a couple of years. You have to, number one, have a budget to be able to afford, not just miss, but be able to afford to stash. Because if you're going to pay a high school quarterback over $1 million, that's a significant chunk of your budget. And then you're probably on top of that paying a starting quarterback salary. So it's about being efficient. It's about doing what makes sense for your program. I guess the best way that I can say, don't break the bank, but at the same time, be confident in what you're spending in. And it's really hard to get quarterbacks right. We've seen that not just at the college level, but at the pro level as well. And you're going to start to see for the Josh Allens that you have, T. Frank, who are the first rounders in the Josh Allen draft? Because
Jackson, Burrow, the Baker Mayfield, and the UCLA kid who never played.
Okay.
Plus,
so you're going to have UCLA kids that never play. That's what I'm looking at with how this is going to work out.
Josh Rosen,
and they're still going to command a significant chunk. So at the level that Penn State is playing in, at the tier that Penn State is on the national scheme, the national scene, I think you try to shoot high with quarterbacks and hope that works, because if it works, it can work really well for your entire roster and can work well for your culture. Matt Campbell seems like a high school quarterbacks guy. He just went and got a guy from the portal, but it was his guy from the portal. So I think it's a little bit different. So I don't think the way that Penn State goes about it, Penn State, the entity, goes about it, is going to be much different than the way that James Franklin went about it. So go with the high school guys, and then if you have to, make that move, because you're going to bring the high school guys in. You're going to know, not right off the bat, but you're going to know fairly quickly, do you have a franchise quarterback? If you don't, okay, well, then there's the door. Go find yourself another spot. We're going to bring somebody else in. So just be right. And that's really hard to do.
That is the part, right. And then if you can find a guy that is below that tier of everyone's attention is going to them and the money is going to them, and you can develop them, that's always great. Like finding a 5th-round draft pick to be your franchise quarterback in the NFL, that is the deal of all deals for the first 4 years of their career. Ryan, did you have something you were going to add there at the end? I thought you raised your hand or something. Oh,
no,
okay.
My shoulder's killing me. That's all.
Oh, okay.
I slept on it bad. I'm sorry. But
that's because you're so jacked. There's too much. Yeah. There's too much in between you and the pillow, so you're just whole weight laying on it.
No, not much to add on that. Do you want to do that last question though, T. Frank? There's one more I thought you pulled.
Yeah, we can do that if you want to. Stephen Light wants to know, looking at the class today, how many players are likely to take. I'm just going to rephrase it because he phrased it in a way that I didn't.
How big is the class of 2027 going to be?
How big is the class of 2027? Sorry,
I got it. Steven, I'm going to do a story on this, actually. I'm happy I saw this in there today because I said, you know what? Let's text some people and ask. So I will break it down a little bit more on the site for you here. I got to do a little bit more digging today, but I'll try and get that up tomorrow. I think 30 is a realistic number, though. 28, 29, 30. I think that's all realistic. And then, like I said, I'll try and break down positionally a little bit more on the site for you here, maybe in the next 24 hours or so. So maybe I can get it done today, but I want to do some digging on it first. But through the numbers to 1 or 2 people a day, and I think we're in the ballpark. So we'll see where things go. But sir, I would just say this tight end, they got to get some young tight ends. That is the one position that really kind of pops out to me. I think young defensive tackles is important as well, and we'll dig through it a little bit more here over the next day or two.
I love a good tease. That'll do it for us here on the BWI Live Show. We'll have more on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel over the next couple of days. So make sure you subscribe here to the YouTube channel. And, of course, to get Ryan's stuff, go to bluewhiteillustrated.com. Sign up for just $1. You can check us out for a week, and then you can decide if you want to join us for the rest of your life. Because once you get in there, you're never going to want to leave with all the information, all the content, all the entertainment from Blue White Illustrated. We'll talk to you later.